It's on mute. Oh, hello. Having some technical difficulties. We will try to get that back on to play as we promised. Unfortunately, Curtis is still under the weather. So keep him in your prayers. We are, as we promised, we're going to give you our Black History program that we promised you guys. So there will be various videos, but we're having technical difficulties, and we will pull that back up with Shanta singing Lift Every Voice. All right. So our first, we're going to just give you some updated information on our forum, vaccine forum for COVID-19. Replacing myths with facts and informational, a call for minority communities, your questions about COVID-19 and the vaccine answered. So we have our host and two doctors that will give out information, which will be Saturday, March the 13th, coming up this week, starting at 11 a.m. our time, Mountain Standard Time. Register for this event. It is free, but you do need to register for it, so you can get the link in order to view the event. Update also our scholarship for Omega Psi Phi fraternity, their opportunity for the scholarship deadline date to turn in those applications are April 30th, 2021. Please, if you have a high school senior who is looking for some extra money when they go off to college, please apply. Contact James Brown at 915-474-0303 or a Cornelis Wright at 915-494-4497. That first number was 474-0303. And then the second number was right at 494-4497. 4497 as the Omega Sci-Fi Scholarship opportunity. Also, the El Paso Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated also has a scholarship program. Our scholarship deadline is May 5th, 2021. Please email dst-epac.org or go to the Facebook or IG page at DST EPAC. So that deadline is May 5th, 2021. College seniors. Also, another scholarship opportunity, the Links Incorporated, the El Paso chapter of the Links Incorporated scholarship. Their deadline is April 19th, 2021. And the scholarships will be awarded on May 16th. If you want to apply, please attach your, your applications to eplinkscholarship@gmail.com. That's eplinkscholarship@gmail.com. And if you need to get further information, you can contact Diane Williams at 334-477-3733. 334-477-3733. Or go to that Gmail, eplinkscholarship, all one word, @gmail.com. All right, so let's see if our technical issues have been solved, and we will try this again.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place which our fathers have sighed. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
All right. Thank you, Shanta. Beautiful. So we're going to have a word from Curtis. So you get to see Curtis, but it is a pre-recording on identity.
Smith. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. Currently live here in El Paso. I'm a retired veteran, volunteer, mentor, and podcast host. The theme for the 2021 Black History Month is the Black family. Before I begin, I would like to just read a little piece from the Washington Post about identity of the Black family. When Africans were taken from their homes and forced into slavery, they were separated from mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers, and were torn from extensive kinship networks. Enslaved in the British colonies of North America or the Free States of the American Union, the ability of the Africans to reestablish nuclear families and familial support systems depended on many factors, including the needs and desires of the slave owners. As the circumstances of slavery changed across time and the place, the opportunity for slaves to marry, have children, and create stable families units fluctuated. So over 150 years ago, the Black family were non-existent. They weren't even considered people in America. So the ancestral part of their identity, they established, we're trying to establish family trees now. So we were trying to find ourselves, the Black family were trying to find themselves. Through slavery, inequality, and poverty, the identity of the Black family has overcome the perseverance of maintaining family ties by having to move from each other. Their economic impact allowed them to reestablish the family bond again by having to come back once they were established. Throughout time, the Black family pulled apart and owned their own businesses. So they came back to becoming owners, Black owners of their own businesses, bringing their family members in to own their businesses to keep the generation together so that they can have something back, so they can have something to look back on in the near future. The Black family has maintained the values of the family through the family reunions, comfort, strength, encouragement, and most of all, survival. Survival being the key to the Black family in America. Today, family reunions are still popular and play an important part in maintaining that family bond that was once held back in the slave days, and knowing who they are as Black families in America. So for me, the Black identity has continued because they continue to understand the importance of family and being strong and understanding who you are and where you came from, so that they can continue to move forward and be a part of what we call America, the identity of the Black family. Although we don't have a lot of time to talk about the Black identity, the identity of the Black family, in the near future, we hope to continue this conversation to understand the importance of the Black family identity in America.
Hi. So good to hear from Curtis on identity. Next, we'll have Julie Loving Scott on representation as a part of our Black History Month theme.
I'm Julie Loving Scott. I'm from Albany, Georgia. My parents are Albert and Betty Loving, and yes, both my parents are still together after 53 years. I currently live in El Paso, Texas. We came here by way of the military. My husband retired here after 23 years of service. Our oldest son is currently serving in the military. His wife is a veteran, and they have our only grandson at the time. We also have 3 other sons that are in college. After being here for a while, I wasn't able to find another job, even at all of the call centers here. So I went into real estate. And believe it or not, it was after prayer and having a dream. And I have actually been in real estate as of today for 7 years. So I'm a licensed Texas realtor as well as a nationally certified financial coach. What does representation of the Black family as an African American means to me? Well, for me, I feel like we're being locked into something that doesn't fully represent us as a people. For instance, to be called African American only identifies one portion of my heritage. I always joke about how you can kind of look at the yellowish color of my skin and notice that I am not all African. So my ancestry.com, I am Caucasian American, Asian American, and I know everybody wants to be, but in real life, I am also a descendant of American Indians. On my father's side, I am descendants of Choctaw Indians out of Mississippi. And my mother's side, they are Cherokee, Blackfoot, and there's a third one that was around in the region in Southwest Georgia. Me being from Albany, even growing up in a small Southwest Georgia town, I was always questioning, why is it I only can identify as a Black person, or now we are African American. I'm not for sure what 2021 is going to give us as a new name, but it only identifies one part of me. So that's why I tell most people I am American with African heritage, but I have other nationalities inside of me as well. And I also feel like there's a misrepresentation of us by saying we're African American, because the Black spectrum is so broad. You have people from India that are literally Black. They are much darker than me. Their skin is actually Black. My husband, who's West Indian, he gets offended when people categorize him as African American. He's an African descendant, but he's from the island of Jamaica. And if you look at his family, you see all of the cultures inside of his family, just like you do with my family. And then our very children, they call themselves Jamaican because they are Jamaican American. And think about it like this: when a farmer goes out and throws a cucumber seed in the ground, it doesn't matter whether he puts that cucumber seed in the ground in Africa or in America. That cucumber seed is going to produce only one thing, and that's a cucumber. So when we say we are African American and isolate all the other attributes and cultures that are inside of us, then I feel like we're not being true to the seed of who we are in America. In my opinion, an African American is that person that moves from Africa and they raise their right hand to become a citizen of America. I was born here. I am American. I am America because, like I said, I have nearly every nationality inside of me, just like my children. Because my children, when they fill out applications and census, they check other, because my oldest son, if you look at him, he looks like he's a mixture of African and Asian, and he's the lightest of us all, and he looks more Asian. Our grandson, because his mother is of Hispanic descent, and we don't know yet. They're going to do their ancestry.com to see if she's even Asian. But if you look at my grandson, you can't tell that he's African American because his father looks Asian. His mother is Hispanic, but she has Asian features. So I feel, in my opinion, that we're misrepresenting ourselves by just saying we're African American. If you were born here in these United States, we should be listed, in my opinion, as just American, because we are America. Our history, if we look at American history, the first Africans that were here were not slaves. And on that note, the Africans that were bought here or brought here from Africa on the ships, they were not slaves. They were human beings that were enslaved by other human beings. And when we talk about slavery in America, it wasn't just Africans. If we look at the other nationalities, the Irish, from my understanding, even some of the Scottish, they were slaves first. So if we're going to tell the African American story, the story of those that came over from Africa, when you start getting to their descendants, you can't just, for the Black family, we're not just one thing. I even struggle with being identified as Black because when I hold the Black crayon next to my skin, we don't match. I have cousins that are Black. However, I am yellowish, orangish, brownish, depending on what sunlight hits me. So as African American, the representation is a misrepresentation. And I am an advocate for retyping ourselves. We've allowed other people to write our story, and it is his story. Now it should be our story and include every part of us that is represented in this America.
Next, a song by Abani Janae, Strange Fruit, in the style of Billie Holiday.
Southern trees bearing strange fruit, blood on the leaves, and blood at the root. Black honey swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral sea of the gallant south, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolias, sweet and fresh. Then comes the smell of burning flesh. Here's a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the trees to drop. Here's a strange and bitter crop.
Woo! That was awesome. So next we'll have Roy Mitchell. He's an MS doctoral student of Clinical Psychology at Florida School of Professional Psychology at NLU in Tampa. He will come on and share and talk to us about Black history, mental health, and his business.
My name is Roy Mitchell. I am originally from the south side of Chicago, born and raised. Huge Bears fan, huge Bulls fan, so sports is my thing. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I joined the military at 18 years old. I left Chicago, never really looked back. I visit every so often. But my first duty station was El Paso, Texas, Fort Bliss. Ironically, I spent like 8 years there. So I have a lot of friends there, a lot of great memories. And during that time, I was heavily into music. So I hadn't yet, kind of settled into the profession that I'm in now. But music, I thought, would be my overall profession. And it's still a huge love of mine. I love music. But that was kind of like my roots in El Paso. Was being in a group called the Young Street Hustlers. Another group and friends were the Giants, with DA and Architects. All those guys, I don't know, if anybody's going to remember any of those groups, but they were pretty popular back then. I'd say it was around, probably finna date myself here, but it was probably around 99-ish, 98-ish, somewhere around there. But anywho, so after finishing my career in the military, I decided that, I wanted to finish my degree in psychology. And so I went on to a doctorate program. I currently go to the Florida School of Professional Psychology out here in Tampa. So I'm in the Sunshine State. I'm a fourth year student. So I'm still training, almost about to cross the finish line. But I just thought that, this career path was important for me because I felt like it would allow me to continue to give back, as I did with service in the military. And so far, it's been good. So my thoughts about the observance of Black history in the U.S. I would say that I would say because of people who look like me, I believe that knowledge is getting out there a little bit more than it was previously. And I say that because there's networks like the Oprah Winfrey Network or the BET Network, where we know actively that Black Americans are paying attention to these different programmings. And so I think that the knowledge is getting out there about the powerful men and women who have fought, bled, died, for our freedom. I believe it's getting out there to our youth. I don't know if it's, I can't tell you whether or not it's being received. And the reason I say that is because you just don't see the change in violence. You know what I mean? It's like I watched the movie last week, The Black Messiah. It was Judas and the Black Messiah. Powerful movie about Black Panthers, Chicago. Love it. It was so sad, but at the same time, it was so inspirational to me that someone that young and that intelligent, I think he was only like 21, 22 when he passed. And I'm talking about Fred, I believe it was Fred Hampton. I think he was so young, and to be, just so about the people and about the community and about the children in the community, that he was willing to put his own life on the line. There's just something that resonates with me when I see stories like that, especially like with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. The amount of stress that these people were under every single day to try to get a message out to Black people. And it was just to get a simple message out to Black people that we need to take care of ourselves. We need to provide our own food for each other. We need to provide our own medical support. We need to take care of our own communities. They got killed just for those type of messages. And so, I said that, I went on a tangent, but I said that to say this. It's so inspirational to me. It makes me want to do better in my life. It makes me want to try to be, as best as I can for my community when I see things like that. And so when I say I don't feel like it's being received, when it comes to a lot of our youth, and not all of our youth, we got amazing youth out there. So I want to make that disclaimer. We got amazing youth out there that's marching out there in protests. They're kicking butt, right? So I definitely don't want people to think like I'm saying all youth is like that. I just feel like that in the communities where it really matters the most, in the low impoverished communities, and the gang infested communities, and the communities where we need a lot of work, I want to see our children stop killing each other, and turn that around to uplifting each other and trying to better their communities so that everyone can grow, and so that's what I kind of harp on. And so I don't want to discredit what a lot of our youth are out here doing, but I just want to make sure that my message is clear. Is that we need to receive the information, and I think we're doing a better job of that, more so than when I was younger. I think when I was younger, there was like a Martin Luther King special that came on. That was probably about it. You didn't hear about Malcolm X. I didn't even hear about Malcolm X really until Spike Lee came out with a movie. And so I know now that a lot more information is getting out there about our culture, about our history, about the amazing, wonderful men and women who paved the way for us. And so I salute the people who look like me that are driving that agenda. But as far as any other group, I don't expect them to drive that agenda. And so I can't really speak on that. But what I can say is what I'm saying from the people who look like me, I'm loving every bit of it.
Good. I like it. Also, we'll have Roy speak on the stigma about mental health in the Black community.
Well, being a Black man and coming from poverty on the south side of Chicago, I know all too well about, how can I put it? I know all too well about trust. and so I think as the Black community, we've endured so much historically when it comes to racism and racial discrimination that dates back to slavery, and then on to Jim Crow, and then on to mass incarceration of Black men, and even further than that, actually, with the Tuskegee experiment and things of that nature, where the mistrust in the medical field and the mistrust in other groups outside of the Black community is just there. Whether it's transferred, meaning passed down from generation to generation, such as my grandmother used to tell me, don't trust white folks. You know what I mean? Or if a white person came to your house, it had to be something bad that was about to happen, or bad news that they were about to bring to you. And so, having that transferred mistrust, it could be witnessed mistrust, such as today with police brutality. We're witnessing so many murders and so many injustices over the internet and over the news, and people's deaths are playing out over and over and over, especially with the highlight of George Floyd and some of the significant others. And then also, you have the experienced mistrust, with personal attacks or someone being violently, injured by law enforcement, or just that blatant racism, that experience leads to more mistrust. And so it's very difficult. And I hate, when I hear people say, oh, well, slavery was so long ago, and Black people have more opportunities now. And yeah, a lot of that is true. But at the same time, when you continue to reinforce these fears, and you continue to reinforce this mistrust within a community there where you're asking us to come stand in line and get a COVID shot, that's scary. And it's not only scary, but again, the trust just isn't there. And as a clinician, I understand that. And, my goal is to basically be a beacon of hope or a beacon of light within my community where people see someone who looks just like them. And I'm able to convey some of these things that I think are important, such as, protecting yourself and, making sure you get medical checkups, trusting that, you will be taken care of if you run into a situation where you may have some challenges medically, possibly, receiving a vaccination that may save your life. That's my overall goal, is to, be of service in my community in that sense. And so, again, I understand the mistrust. I understand the issue with our community and why we are unable to, kind of push through some of this historical racism that we've experienced. But again, I think we need more people like myself that are kind of taking the torch and saying, hey, follow me. I am going to lead you down in the right direction. And so that, hopefully that's what I can do throughout the remainder of my lifetime here on Earth.
So stick around for Sandra Reed for her words later. We'll hear from her shortly. But next, we'll hear a gospel melody from Shanta.
Praise the Lord, I'm free, no longer bound, no more chains holding me, my soul is resting, it's still a blessing. Praise the Lord, hallelujah, I'm free, 'cause I need thee, oh, I need thee every hour. I need thee, oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to bless the Lord, oh, my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name, for he has done great things. He has done great things. He has done so many great things. Bless his holy name.
Awesome. Thank you, Shanta. So now we'll hear words from Sandra Reed.
Hi, I'm Sandra Reed. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, but there were three other stops that I feel like I am from, and that's Washington, D.C. and San Francisco. As a child in St. Louis, my family and my sisters and brothers, we were so sheltered. We actually grew up, and if you don't know the religion, as Seventh-day Adventists, which puts you in a lot of rules and regulations. So when I left for college, which I have to say I was fortunate because I actually had a choice of 5 different colleges from scholarships. I was pretty smart those days. I have to laugh now. And so that meant that when I actually went to Washington, D.C., Howard University, that I was probably the most naive person on the universe. My first exposure was a bus ride, and on the bus ride there was a guy that came on the bus, and he had one of those yellow, pink, and blue afro wigs, and my first response was, "Oh Lordy Jesus, Mama and Daddy didn't tell me about this." But Howard University was the most maturing time and part of my life. I have memories, and I appreciate the people that I was exposed to. They helped me grow in so many different ways. And then after that, my next stop was San Francisco. I met my husband there on Friday the 13th, and that probably has some significance, being that we've been married for more than 40 years now. And we lived there, but my husband was military, so he was moved to El Paso. I have to say, I did not even know where El Paso was, or nor that it was part of Texas until we got here. Funny story is that we drove from San Francisco, beautiful green mountains. We came into El Paso at night. El Paso is amazing to see at night with the lights and the mountains. And then you wake up and you see that the mountains are gray. I've come to love those gray mountains. And most of the people that I have met here in El Paso are from other places. And so we get to share our different cultures, our different backgrounds. It may have taken a while to get to Texas, but now I call it home. I have two amazing young men that are my sons, and I'm very proud of them, Aaron and Brandon Reed, and they grew up here. When we moved to El Paso, we found a location in Cañutillo, Texas. It's a little pecan grove. The culture, once again, was very different, especially for my oldest son, because when they did the demographics for school, he was at 0.0001%, the only Black kid in the school district. So his life was probably a little different from what most kids his age was exposed to. I'm so proud of what he has developed and what he has contributed to community, and what he's doing with his life. He started his own business. So sometimes being in a situation that's different can prepare you and develop you into a person that you may not have been if you grew up in a soft environment. That's the best way for me to explain it. So I have two wonderful sons, and I have one grandson who is multicultural, and he knows that he's my favorite grandson, though he always tells me that he's my only grandson, but that still makes him my favorite grandson. And then God blessed me finally with granddaughters, and this is where I've come to understand that there's a big difference in men and women, and our purposes oftentimes are different too. So here I am home. We after moving into Cañutillo and buying a small pecan grove, developed a business that was a hobby, more or less. And I don't know if you know, we own Reed Sand Dog Training Center and Kennel in the Grove, and they actually named the street after us in Cañutillo called Reed Sand Grove. We started the business out where we'd go out in the desert on Saturday mornings with 2 or 3 people. And my husband knew how to train dogs because he was actually worked with a lady that owned a kennel. She was 100% Choctaw Indian. She had her own ways of training, and some of the things he held on to and some of the things he had to modify along the way. When we first started the business, it was like if you've ever had a wheelbarrow full of heavy rocks and you're pushing it up a hill, but we would reach plateaus. Then we push it up some more and we reach another plateau until we got to the point where the wheelbarrow was just pulling us along. And that at that point, we knew that we had it made. We've had amazing clients. Going back, Meadowlark Lemon, the Clown Prince of Basketball, started off as a client, but became such a friend that he ended up being the godfather of my oldest son, Aaron. So along the way, we have clients that are international. Some people call them superstars, but every one of our clients are superstars as far as we're concerned. And so that's what we are doing now. That's why we are still here in El Paso, and that's why we love El Paso, along with its weather, its people, its culture, and the friends that we've made. In my learning environment, we were always exposed to Black history, and Black history was important to my household. My mother actually was a school teacher, amazing. I can go back to my childhood in which my grandfather actually pushed to have a school built on his property. That is another story as to how he acquired the property. And during those days, unfortunately, there could be a lot of chaos when Black people had not only property, but had requests, such as building a school on their property for the kids to go to. So education has always been a main point in my life. Black history, I believe that I, like many growing up during my time, that my family was our Black history. You know, the grandparent, the aunt, the uncle, the cousin that everybody talked about. I was blessed to hear these stories and even more have a book that my family put together with pictures that go back generations. It even includes some of our slave master relatives. I say relatives because a lot of slave masters had children that were actually their slaves. But for me, Black history probably started to stand out with the presence of Dr. Martin Luther King. That was televised. I think most people even remember what they were doing at that period of time, especially when he was, when his life ended. He was assassinated. And from their names like, Jesse Jackson, Shirley Chisholm, Langston Hughes, and so many others became more common and separated out of the history that we were learning. And most of it was, it was taught within the household and not so much in the school system itself. I wasn't in living on the border and the educational systems and how they were responsible for presenting Black history to our youth. When we got here, I wasn't really exposed to the educational system in that way. Yes, my sons were here, but we tended to give them the Black history. But my firsthand experience is more through, should I say, osmosis. When the water in the glass leaks through the other side as droplets. My 10-year-old grandson, who, as I said, is multicultural, provides me the droplets, especially now that I'm more aware of the environment. We jokingly say that it's our responsibility to teach him the Black side of his culture, and it's been a joy to do so. But in 5th grade, this may be the first year that he has been required to write a report on Black history. So the doors are opening. There's so much history outside of those awesome Black abolitionists, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, and athletes amazing Carl Lewis, Hank Aaron, who just recently passed away, for them to learn. Beautiful things like, I went to a museum and I found out that a Black female slave invented the ironing board. Sarah Boone was her name. Dr. Charles Drew gave the world astounding advancements on preserving blood for transfusions, saving millions of lives. Washington, D.C., where I went to Harvard University, was designed by a Black man, Benjamin Banneker. And now NASA has named their headquarters after a Black female mathematician, Mary Jackson. I'm not by far a historian, but I do know our Black youth should know their history and to always, always walk in pride. We're talking about culture, we're talking about contributions and living Black on the border. Let's start with changing the concepts, Black History Month, and mix it up, blend it up, extend the learning to 12 months. But when I say mix it up, I'd also like to include other cultures. I have so much respect for other cultures because there are aspects in which we all cross into each other's history. Enjoying my collard greens, your tacos, your steak, your fried rice and spaghetti. It needs to be a complete story with the bad and the good of the history. And so oftentimes when we start talking about one history, it moves into a different history. If we start talking about Black history, it can move into a different culture. We talk about a different culture. We can then move into our Black culture. And for me, anybody knows me knows that I do pray to God, that we are all God's children. So at one point or another, we all support each other, even in the darkness. We bring out the light. Wow. There are many more now than before. We take for granted a lot of the present day books that have been written because they're there now. When Black writers first came, there were people were saying, "Oh, did you read this book? Did you read this book?" It was always the same book. But now there's so many. I enjoyed reading both books by the Obamas, which, by the way, I'm understanding that First Lady Michelle Obama is writing another book. And I get bragging rights. Wait just a minute. Because I was involved in the last election in a very nice way, just getting people to vote, not telling people who to vote for. And Michelle Obama, of course, is one of the directors for When We All Vote. And with my participation, I was actually able to be on a Zoom with her and 18 other people. She talked to us individually. It was so amazing to be appreciated for the work that was being done in the 10 states that I served for voting, for the voter registration. So I'm looking forward to reading her next book. The Obamas remind us in their books that they were ordinary people. It helps you to realize that great people, leaders are amongst us, sitting next to us. It inspires us to know that we can do great things, some bigger than others, but we all have that ability. Michael Eric Dyson, of whom I met about 3 years ago, I heard of him, but I wasn't exposed to him up close and personal because I was able to have a conversation with him. He's a little edgy with his writing, but he forces us to think of his many books that he's written about Black individuals. Of course, he's written about Tupac. He's written about the Obamas, about so many people. I think he's written about 20 books, and each time I pick up one to read it, it takes my thoughts and expands them. I especially enjoy his book, Why I Love Black Women. It's a nice gift to give to a Black woman. Michael Eric Dyson, Why I Love Black Women. It describes the toils that Black women have gone through historically. Oftentimes taking on responsibilities that normally would require 2 to 3 people to complete. Raising children, making sure that they're safe, exposing them to those type things. And now being Vice President of the United States. Yes, thank you, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. So over the years, he does point out some of the accomplishments and the empowerment of Black women. So I enjoyed that book. I'll always love Maya Angelou. Poets allow us to use our own life experiences to interpret their words. It's fortifying. I'm always looking for to reading a poet's writings. I'm especially looking forward to getting Amanda Gordon's poet of the Hill We Climb new book of poetry, Change Sings, a children's anthem. So I can imagine what she's going to do with that, especially if she's writing for children. And oftentimes children's books are so inspiring for adults like myself. So, and I think that even now, though it's not even out yet, that it has an astounding amount of pre-orders for that book. So those are some that I like, but there are so many more. Anybody that knows me knows that I love music and will travel to hear it. I've traveled distances for concerts. I love all music except maybe the polka music played with a accordion. I don't know. I may have to listen to that a little bit more to get the rhythm of it. Country Western has great lyrics. I was watching the morning show, and Vince Gill just introduced his song, March On. If you have a moment, Google it because the words are amazing. He is singing about how Black people have and are continuing to march on even with 400 years. He puts that in his song, Country Western. So might want to look at it. It's a statement that Country Western Americans is recognizing our 4 years of Black history. And maybe my favorite, I think jazz is closest to my heart because it takes control of my mood and other people's moods and minds. Virtual true history, like music, our history is composed of different notes, tempos, rhythms, beats. It can grab hold of you and become a part of you. I went to Montgomery/Selma, Alabama in March 2020 for the 55th Bloody March across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in commemoration of the Voting Act of 1965, in which John Lewis was one of the people that marched across the bridge and unfortunately was beaten. They cracked his skull. But John Lewis came back, and he even said he almost died that day. He comes back and he tells us to get into good trouble and be part of the good trouble as he has been. And the memory of him will live on, and the things and his compassion will live on too. While there, I went to some of the museums focused on Black history. It's an experience that I wish everyone could have. I left with the spirit of our ancestors on my back from the things that I learned that they did for us to be where we are now. Many gave their lives. They won us the right to vote. Voting is our voice. It is our superpower. I would suggest, again, Googling some of the Black museums, look at their content and exhibits. Our ancestors were so mighty. And maybe after covert to Google some of the museums and go visit, because they're visual. And again, the spirits are in the room. Well, naming 3 Black businesses to support on the border. Well, of course, Reed said Dog Training Center in Killing the Grove. As a Black business owner, I just can't choose 3 because there are many more than 3 that have excelled and that have put their heart and soul into the business. And when we first came here, I have to say it's a lot different now because there are Black businesses that are part of so many different services. I mean, of course, restaurants, of course, Black churches, coming out and doing, well, solar, there are so many. And then, of course, you, Monk. What you are doing is amazing, and we thank you for allowing our voices to be heard, and to bring out and bring forth. And more people should reach out to you to share their businesses. I'm going to tell you again another funny story along the way that I think was interesting, is that there's a certain pride in being Black and owning a business, because we know it's different. It just is. When my husband and I laugh because this has happened more than once, but we would have clients come out. If he was out in the grove, doing something with one of the trees or something like that, people would stop and say, "We're here to see Mr. Reed of Reed Sand." And he would look at them and says, "How can I help you?" And they would say, "Well, you can tell us where Mr. Reed is." And so he says, because you have to be my husband to understand him, his approach. He says, "Okay, fine. How can I help you?" And the response would then again be, well, it wouldn't be, "Well, are you Mr. Reed?" It would then again be, "Sure, just direct me where I go to find Mr. Reed." So sometimes Black owners can be invisible, but when we are visible, then we own what we do. I think that it's important for those Black owners and entrepreneurs and people getting started, find a way of sharing, because sometimes sharing stories like the one I just shared is strengthening, and it lets you know that there are some things that are pretty normal, and to take it in stride and move forward and make the good of it. So that's my story that I thought was something that was a lasting feeling for us, to be an invisible owner sometimes. Yeah. In the times I've had opportunities to share or to speak, I always like to bring up the 10-10 or possibly 20-20 rule or concept. Of course, I gave it that name. But I think that as individuals, we should always have someone who is at least 10 years younger than us and 10 years older than us, and if possible, 20 years younger or 20 years older, because we can always teach those that are younger and show them the path that we've followed, that we stepped into, and what we've learned and what our experiences are, because oftentimes they can be parallel, and if they're not parallel, they can be educational. I know that each generation experiences different things. So when I talk to people who are my elders, I am astounded as to what people can survive mentally and physically. And that gives me strength. That also gives me concepts of laughter, of fun, the simple things that we don't always look at. With the younger generation, not only can we teach, but we have a lot that we can learn from them. So much where they don't see oftentimes the things that we can get. We are still caught up in the concepts that we learned or as we were growing up. Multicultural is becoming a very natural thing. When I grew up, there were still signs of you can't mix which drinking fountain. Well, I'm not quite that old, but I was very young. But you can't mix the drinking fountains. And now we're talking about mixing cultures and people and being happy and satisfied and comfortable with it. So 10 and 10 or 20 and 20. Learn from those who are older and younger and teach those who are older and younger. Sometimes with my grandson, who's 10, I wish I could just open up his head and pour everything, all the knowledge that I have inside his head, and he could walk with the knowledge. But that's not the way you learn. You learn by sharing and talking and getting involved. And I guess I would just like to wrap up by saying, spend more time talking to people, to include the people in your culture. You'll find out that so many things are the same and so many things are parallel. And finally, we have so much talent in so many fields in El Paso. Support our culture. Shine. Let others watch you glow.
I like it. And then next we have Abani Janae singing A Tisket, a Tasket in the style of Ella Fitzgerald.
A tisket, a tasket, a brown and yellow basket. I sent a letter to my mommy, and on the way I dropped it. I dropped it, I dropped it. Yes, on the way I dropped it. A little girlie picked it up and put it in her pocket. She was walking on down the avenue without a single thing to do. She went pick, pick, picking all around until she spied it on the ground. She took it, she took it. She took my yellow basket, and if she doesn't bring it back, I think that I would die. A tisket, a tasket, that girlie stole my basket, and if she doesn't bring it back, I don't know what I'll do. Oh dear, I wonder where my basket could be. So sweet, so sweet, so sweet, so sweet. Oh, Oh, why was I so careless with that basket of mine? That itty bitty basket was a joy of mine. A tisket, a tasket, I lost my yellow basket. Won't someone help me find my basket and make me happy again? Was it green? No, no, no. Was it red? No, no, no. Was it blue? No, 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 no. Just a little yellow basket. Skip-it-a-dee-dee-doo-la-dee-doo-wah. A little yellow basket.
I was enjoying it. Ended too soon. Now back to Roy for the current climate in the US for Black people and a little bit about his blog.
My opinion of the current climate and how Black people are affected today. Well, one, I want to just throw out there, because it's a difficult question. It's an emotional question, and I want to make sure that I approach this question in a sensitive manner. But I do want to give a little background on my research in psychology. And my research in psychology is on stress and cognition in Black men specifically. And it's not to discredit women. We also have a study about stress and cognition in Black women. There's just a Black woman, female psychologist that's going to be heading that. But my particular passion is in Black men because we tend to hide behind our bravado. We tend to not seek medical attention or mental health more frequently than our female counterparts. And so that's kind of where my research is kind of landing. And within my research, within looking at stress and cognition in Black men, I'm also talking about the current climate of racism in Black men. And I talk about the effects of racism in the current climate of social justice. And I can't get a lot into I can't go into great detail about the research because it's still pretty active. But what I can tell you is that we highlight a couple of things. A lot of studies that we look at talk about perceived racism. And so when you think about perceived racism, perceived is like the thought of racism. But what I want to highlight is like the actual danger of racism. And that's what we're seeing in our current climate. With so many of our Black men and women being gunned down by people who are supposed to protect and serve us. And so when I think about the current climate, I'm going to address that. I'm going to address that piece of, our communities being taken advantage of or being mistreated. And so I think with the African-American experience, I think we have to look at three traumas, and I kind of highlighted those earlier on in the presentation, but we have to look at three traumatic stressors, which is the transferred, experienced, and the witnessed. And so I kind of highlight those because I think they each play a great deal in like the current climate and how each of us as Black people respond to the current climate. And again, I talked about the transferred, which is generation to generation, the actual experience where you're actually threatened or you're actually physically violated. And then I'll talk about the witnessed. And so what we're looking at is like the witnessed piece, because we're witnessing so much death of our own and what that looks like for your father or for your brother or for your mother or for your sister. And how scary that thought could be, that you could walk outside your house and never come back just because of the color of their skin. And it's been a lifelong tradition for many of us due to the historical discrimination that we've experienced within this country. And so the current climate of today is highlighting those things because we have a stronger lens through social media, through camera phones, where we're able to see a lot of the where the mistrust stems from. And so when you have someone that's outside of our group, and what I mean by that is a Caucasian or an Asian or someone who may not understand, the plight of what Black people go through because they may feel like slavery was, 50 something years ago. Yeah. Now you're able to see it And even if we saw in the last administration, people are able to see it and they still won't receive it. I mean, you can see the death of a George Floyd and still say, well, he shouldn't have been resistant, or he should have just laid there, or it's a lot of different things that I've witnessed and I've experienced, and a lot of questions and debates and over this topic. And so I think that, again, we can't depend on others to take care of us. I think that, this current climate of racism and injustice and social injustice is showing us that, we have a light shining on us and the whole world is seeing the injustices that we go through, and they're sympathetic and empathic about it. And a lot of them are out there on the front lines marching with us. And when I say a lot of them, I mean like our white counterparts and Latino counterparts and Asian counterparts and all those different things. But at the same time, when everybody go home and go to sleep, it's still us as a Black community that's responsible for making sure we take care of ourselves. And that's through advocacy. That's through, getting into a position where we're able to change laws. We're able to lobby against certain things, getting more informed about those things as far as what's happening in our communities when it comes to, any type of politics. I don't care if it's an alderman position, knowing what your alderman is doing, why he's doing it. I think more than ever, this current climate is showing us that we as a community, as a culture, need to become more knowledgeable when it comes to politics in general. And that way we can start getting in there and putting our foots down and our roots down to make change. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that by the boatloads. I mean, we're seeing that with many of our Black women, many of our transgender population. I mean, we're seeing that in waves of diverse groups that are getting into politics because, we know like we have to start changing laws to make things better. And it may not be better for us. It may not, and I'm okay with that. Martin was okay with that. Malcolm X was okay with that. But making things better for the next generation that's coming up behind us, or that generation, or the following generation coming up behind them, making things better for them, I think should be the ultimate legacy that we all want to leave. And talking about, my blog that I'm promoting for, I would say not just myself. I want it to be a community thing. My blog is called Mitchellverse, and you can find it on mitchellverse.com. That's MITCHELLVERSE. And two things I'm trying to, demonstrate on my blog is that, one, I'm a psychologist. I'm a clinical psychologist at heart. I will be a licensed clinical psychologist here pretty soon. And so my first goal is to invite psychology students, invite psychology professionals, invite anybody that's curious about psychology onto my site. And on my site, you can actually purchase merchandise and things of that nature dealing with psychology. And then also there's a second component, which is I offer a blog. And so my blog is dealing with pretty much cultural topics. I'm talking about topics that affect the Black community specifically. Every now and then we'll venture out with different types of blogs, but some of my blogs are topics such as, are young Black men educated on the long-term effects of child support requirements? One of the things that kind of affects not just Black men, but our community in general. Simply because of the fact that when you're not educated about how important it is to have a lifelong partner, or how important it is to make sure that who a Black man impregnates, they're going to stick it out for the family, for the child, for that queen that that they engaged with, how important that is just for the community. we lose a lot. We lose a lot, one, financially. We lose a lot, too, because we lose different avenues, or not avenues, but different psychosocial factors that contribute to us getting better as a community, such as higher education, employment, quality employment. And what I mean by quality employment, I mean high-paying jobs, such as, a profession or a career, versus working a job where it's a 9 to 5 and you're getting paid minimum wage. Nothing wrong with those jobs. I'm just using that as an example of how to better our community and how we can grow as a community. But other factors such as, making sure that our kids have a legit father in the home, because that's very important. I didn't have a father in the home for a very long time until my mother remarried when I was 13 years old. And by that time, I was already kind of feeling myself. But, just enhancing some of those psychosocial factors through that communication with young Black men. And so that's a blog topic. Another blog topic is, are motivational self-help books helpful? Because my goal as a clinician is to push out literature that is going to uplift my community. And so I just want to kind of gauge, what is helpful? Are self-help books preachy? Do people enjoy reading them? Are they inspirational? Will you listen to the advice or to some of the fact-finding things that we may put in these books? Another topic is about community involvement, how that looks. Another topic might be nature versus nurture, which is a huge debate within psychology from Freud on up. It's been a huge debate over time. Do people benefit more so from their environment, which is the things that go on around you, whether that be, whether it's a poor community, whether it's gang involvement, how are you able to maneuver through these different situations from a nurture standpoint or nature standpoint. And then the nurture piece is more so biologically, the family that you're born into, how you're cared for, things of that nature. And so, even though there's an argument on whether the two can coexist, I believe they can. I believe they're equally important. I believe, how you're brought up, the way your parents raise you, and the environment both contribute to the type of individual that you're going to be, and overall, the type of community that you're going to build. And so I just thought it was a great post to just include. One of the other posts that I put on one of my sites was when feelings of defeat stay longer than expected. And so as a clinical psychologist, I do deal a lot with patients with depression. As many of you know, within the Black community, mental health is not something that's sought after. And so, I throw these different blogs out there just to kind of gauge whether or not the tide is turning on that. And what I mean by that is the stigma being reduced. Are Black people being more susceptible to, get therapy based on the time and the situation that we're currently in. And so, I just think having that temperature gauge out there is really helpful because, again, as I said before, I want to be a beacon of hope when it comes to Black people really taking care of themselves mentally, not just physically, but mentally. We struggle as a community, as a culture, due to our past, due to our history, due to the continued violence that we experience, due to the continued abuse and neglect that we experience. And so mentally, in most cases, is more important for us than physical component. And so that's my goal, is just to highlight that as well. And then also we have little fun topics or little fun blogs. Like our last blog was called Love is in the Air. And it was based off of a theme based off of Valentine's Day. And so, just kind of, just poking the bear and asking about whether or not people think love is real and things of that nature, just kind of getting an assessment of how people are feeling about love. And then I think one of the most powerful blogs that I've had so far, and what I've gotten a lot of criticism on is if more successful Black men engaged in mentoring would it change the trajectory of youth violence? Now, I can tell you that as a young Black man, way back in the day, coming from the streets of Chicago, South Side, gangs, drugs, it was a daily part of my life, and violence. And it's gotten worse over time. If you've ever opened up a newspaper or saw anything on the news about Chicago. However, I think that because the youth is so disconnected, from home, from their home base. And when I say home base, I mean many of our Black men were incarcerated. So a lot of children were left to raise themselves. Many moms were left to defend for themselves, either being having to work work 3 or 4 jobs just to take care of the family, or succumbing to drug abuse or different substances. And so many of our children were left to be raised on their own. And I think that, as they grew and as they're, older now, we have a huge problem with violence. We have a huge problem with especially young Black men controlling their emotions enough to not put yourself in a situation to go to prison. And that's just because the guidance simply wasn't there. It's not their fault. It's just the guidance wasn't there. And so the question that I pose is just, would we be able to change the trajectory of youth violence if more successful Black men showed youth or Black youth that they cared? And I know for me, and we're talking with other successful Black men, a lot of them are, especially the older ones, are scared to go into these communities because the violence is so rampant, and because a lot of the youth don't want to hear you. They feel like they were abandoned. They experienced death, witnessed death, and so just some of these things are deeply rooted in our communities. And posing this question, I believe that there's still an opportunity for us, even if it's, and I said it in my post, even if it's just ones and twosies, even if you find someone who may be in a situation where they're in poverty, or they're in, gang activity, or they're in a situation where, you see that path going in the wrong direction, they may not necessarily want to be in that situation. And so just grabbing that one person and showing them something different, showing them a person of color that's successful, showing them that you actually care, I think will make a huge change. And it's just a ripple in the lake, but at the same time, we need a lot of ripples. And if no one is really catering to these communities where we're showing our young folks that we care about them, I mean, we're going to continue down the same path. And if it's not working, then we got to fix it. And so that's kind of like, the what I want to highlight in that specific post, and what I want to continue to do in the work that I'm going to do moving forward in psychology.
All right, all good and excellent information. We have a few more announcements to discuss or to get out to you guys. So we have the Links Incorporated El Paso chapter will be doing their 3 basket fundraiser. It's a raffle. So buy your raffle tickets. Raffle tickets are $5 per ticket. And this is to, all the proceeds go to their scholarship fund and other programs. The tickets went back on sale in February. It was the 28th. So you still can get those tickets. Remember, $5 per ticket. Contact Ms. Williams at 334-477-3733 or email ladycsm49@yahoo.com. Repeating that number, 334-477-3733. Email ladycsm49@yahoo.com. Our other announcement, the El Paso Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated will have our Peppermint Affair Jazz Screen 21 on March the 13th at 6 p.m. For more information and tickets, email EPAC, that's EPAC, Jazz Community at gmail.com. Then we also have Black Business Directory, El Paso area Black-owned businesses. It's a free listing. So if you want to promote your Black-owned business, remember it is free. You will be featured on Black on the Border and Black EP Voice, and that stands for El Paso Voice. We also have Black on the Border on Mondays at noon with Curtis Smith. Also Facebook, Instagram at Black on the Border, Twitter at Black on the Border. You can also send us an email at blackontheborder@gmail.com. And Curtis Smith is your host. All right, so we are wrapping up. And I want to thank you for joining us on our hashtag After February Black History Month program. You know, March will be a week late, but March is Women's History Month. So we will be featuring prominent women in our community as well as other communities. So please send your information to us and follow us on your social media. We're going to have some final words from Roy for our Black History Month ending.
I guess I'm going to end the segment by just kind of giving out some information about, the business that I've started up here. It's an online business primarily right now. And again, it's called Mitchellverse, social issues through a psychological lens. And so that's kind of what we do on our site is we examine social issues through a psychological lens, and we do that through a blog. And so what we do is like I said before, we blog on certain topics that affect the Black community or topics that we think may be interesting to maybe get some more information on. But also, if you go onto my site, it's also a psychology shop. And so, again, for those who's just tuning in, I am on my way to being a clinical psychologist, a Black clinical psychologist. And so I like to promote all things psychology. And so when you go on my website, you'll be able to find shirts to do that, especially if like you're a student or you have a desire to become a psychologist or a therapist. We have a lot of different shirts and a lot of different hats and different sayings, that psychologists use. I'll tell you, for instance, like destigmatize mental health is one of our shirts. We have mugs. It's a psychology thing. Different things related to clinical psychology. Also, we talk about like Black identity in some of our shirts, just kind of like internalizing that process of we call it the crosses model of Black identity, and some of those stages of Black identity. And so a lot of the site is just promoting like Black culture, psychology, infusing psychology into Black culture, trying to make people more comfortable or actually make Black people more comfortable with mental health and with asking questions about their mental health and possibly seeking mental health for the betterment of them and their communities. And so that's roughly what the site is about. And it's very simple. We kind of just like made it super simple where you come on, you can see different shirts and different merchandise. You can go straight to the blog and you can chime in there, and then you can also subscribe at the very bottom. So we made it very simple, very easy, nothing crazy, and that's something that we're really promoting. There's also a book of mine that it's been pushed back to later this year, but it's coming out here pretty soon, and it's called A Black Man's Kryptonite. And that's going to just talk about, it's a self-development book, and it's for 15 to 40 years old range is what I'm kind of trying to target in Black males, but it's for everybody, of course. But it's about Black males struggling with self-awareness. And the kryptonite is just meaning like it presents like an emotional and psychological concept where, you know, the kryptonite is not protecting your financial power, and with not protecting your financial power, even starting as young as middle school, it kind of puts you into a situation or a trajectory where it's going to be very tough for you to be successful, right? And so one of the things about the book is just, you know, making better relationship decisions, mentorship, tying all those things into our Black community, and saving our financial stability, because that's going to be the key to not only uplifting your family personally, but uplifting your community. And so Black males will obtain financial stability if they are informed as early as middle childhood or of child support requirements. B, secure positive peer relations in adolescence if they are mentored, particularly by other Black males who are successful or trying to be successful. Secure positive peer relationships, maintain financial power in adulthood if they have a strong emotional foundation. And so a lot of that comes through mentorship because, you know, I grew up without a father for almost 13 years, my first 13 years of life. And, you know, by that time, my mind was kind of already set in the type of person that I was going to project to be. And luckily, I had a strong Black mom who kind of, you know, kept the pedal to the metal on me. But I think just having that male presence and someone to kind of show you how to handle your emotions, how to navigate different relationships, you know, how to protect your education so that you can, you know, move forward and have that financial stability to be able to take care of family one day, or to be able to invest, or to be able to, you know, have a business within your community and promote your business within your community. And so those are some of the things that I want to highlight in the book. And, you know, I'm hoping to do that here towards the end of the year. I just want to kind of leave on a really high note, and you know, just really drive home the fact that we need to take care of ourselves as a community. And you know, I just want to highlight 3 things that we can do to really do that. And when I say community, that I mean I'm talking about anyone who's impoverished, or anyone who's a minority, or anyone who is struggling, you know, to just succeed within this construct of you know, racial discrimination or historical racism. I encourage you to one, mentor someone, whether it's you know, a Black male youth or a Black female youth. Everyone needs mentoring, especially this day and age where there's so much going on, so much negative things out there that can really just mislead a child or mislead a teen. And so I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to invest in your own community. Whether that's promoting a business that's going to help the community, whether that's buying a grilled cheese at a Black restaurant, you know, whatever it may be, just try to reinvest the dollar and build that trust within your own community. But most important, as a mental health clinician, we have to start taking care of ourselves mentally. And that's whether or not, you know, it's witnessed or it's experienced. You know, if you witness someone that's struggling, you know, suggest, man, you probably need to talk to someone. You know, even if it's a pastor, that's fine too. But I think mental health professionals have the tools and the training, overall training, to really help people overcome a lot of the despair and the hopelessness that we all go through at some point in our life. And so, you know, if you see someone struggling, recommend it. If you're yourself are struggling, you know, seek mental health. It's important that we start to take care of ourselves. and that's the that's the legacy that I want to leave behind.
All great information. So we're ending the show now. And don't forget to follow us on our social media. Follow me. It's fedora.com. IG at It's Me Fedora 1. Facebook and Twitter at It's Me Fedora. So as I always say, keep love in your heart and stay safe, please. Double mask if you need to. Mask up, even though they say there are no mask mandates, but there doesn't need to be a mandate for you yourself, except for to keep yourself safe. So wear your mask.